Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We just started the webinar, so a few people are now coming in to join us. I'm just waiting for everybody to join from the waiting room, so just give us a few seconds and we'll get underway. Great, there's a steady stream of people joining us. Great, thank you and welcome to this morning's retirement planning webinar. My name is Justin Colley. I'm one of the business development managers of Australian Catholic Super. I'm based in our Burwood office. Today I'm presenting the webinar from home in Sydney Southwest, where the rain has been pouring down and floods and so on. And I know a lot of people have been doing it difficult over the last few months all around New South Wales and Australia with different natural disasters and so on. So our thoughts are with you. Presenting with me today is Boris Tesnovich. Boris is one of our financial planners, and he's coming to you from his home in Wollongong. Good morning, Boris.
Good morning, Justin. Thanks for having me. And yes, it's pretty wet and raining down here as well.
Yes, and I can certainly hear a lot of cars driving past with the rain on their wheels splashing. So if there is any noise, I do apologise for that, but it's unfortunately beyond our control. So today, Boris and I are going to be giving you a webinar on retirement planning and talk about putting money into superannuation and getting it ready to start the allocated pension and what's involved in getting it started and how that works. And Boris will also talk about the financial planning at Australian Catholic Super. Please, if you've got any questions throughout, put them in the chat box or the Q&A. I've got a couple of screens here, so you'll see me looking away from the camera. I'll be looking to see if any questions are coming through. And if they're relevant to the topic we're talking about then and there, I'll stop and answer the question, but more than likely we'll answer questions at the end of today's webinar. We're also recording today's webinar, and it's also being streamed live onto Facebook. So if you want to go back and look at it afterwards, you would be able to see a recording on Facebook, and a recording will also be available on our website through a link to our YouTube channel tomorrow at some stage. At the conclusion of today's webinar, after lunch today, you'll receive a survey just asking you any questions, what you thought of today's presentation, any ways that we can improve going forward. Boris and I hope to finish this within the hour, but please feel free to ask any questions. And if they are of a personal nature, we may have to take them on notice and get your local regional manager to give you a call to answer that question directly for you. Always a technical start here. My slide isn't changing. Here we go. So I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners, the traditional custodians of land which I work and live, and recognise their continuing connection to land, water, and community. I pay respects to elders, past, present, and emerging. Now, with all financial seminars and webinars and presentations alike, we need to give you a disclaimer. Essentially, everything that Boris and I are talking about today is of a general nature. Should you want personal advice that takes into account your own personal circumstances, we suggest that you contact a licensed financial planner, such as Boris, who's with us today. And we've got a number of financial planners in our offices around Australia, namely in Brisbane and Perth, but they also travel to our regional locations as well. And certainly technology that over the last 2 years with the COVID pandemic and like, a lot more presentations are now done via Zoom and Teams and so on. So we are able to assist our members in many places around Australia. So first of all, when many people come in to have a chat to our financial planners, they've got many different retirement goals in mind. Boris, did you want to touch on some of those retirement goals that members talk to you about?
Thanks, Justin. So typically what we do see when the clients come to talk to us about their retirement is their desire to do something once the full-time or part-time work finishes. So typically it has been travel, although in the last few years that's obviously changed because of the COVID situation. Some people also like spending more time with their family. They like spending time with their grandkids, or perhaps helping their elderly parents who may need care. Cruises used to be very popular. Whether that's making a comeback or not, I'm not so sure. And just generally spending quality time, going to theatres, movies, perhaps camping, or spending more time in your own garden.
I guess, yes, certainly the last 2 years has really changed people's perspective on their retirement goals and what they can and can't do, and restrictions being imposed on a lot of people around Australia. Even just travelling within Australia has been quite difficult. So a big thing has been spending time with family, and I know people are now starting to get out and about. As you say, cruising isn't popular at the moment, although I'm seeing more and more ships in Sydney Harbour now as I travel over the Harbour Bridge or the Glebe Island Bridge there.
They are making a slow comeback.
They are. I won't be going on one for a while. So do you have enough money in retirement, and how much do you need?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah, sorry. So I was just having trouble here, Boris. The slides aren't changing too easily here. But so do you have enough money? And ASFA works out what you need for a comfortable lifestyle, both on a modest and comfortable. And ASFA is the Association of Superannuation Funds of Australia, and compare that to the age pension. Did you want to touch on those amounts, please, Boris?
Yeah, thanks, Justin. So that's a very good question. Do you have enough money to retire in comfort? When we're thinking about the retirement, we are thinking about a number of moving parts. And typically, at some point in time, age pension or Centrelink entitlements come into play. So if we think about what can you get in terms of Centrelink, in maximum terms, if you're a single person, it's about $26,000 a year. And for couples, it's about $38,000 to $39,000 a year. Now, most people I see for retirement planning require a little bit more than that. So ASFA, as you said, has come up with two standards. First one is modest standard. So how much money would you require to retire with a modest lifestyle in the retirement? And they've come up with a figure of about $29,000 for a single person or $42,000 for couples. For comfortable lifestyle, which is what most of my clients want, it's about $46,000 for singles and about $65,000 per year for couples. As you can see, there is a significant gap there between maximum entitlement for age pension and comfortable lifestyle amounts. So retirement planning is all about trying to fund that gap, finding the sources of income in the retirement to help you bridge that gap. And obviously, everybody being different, for some people, this amount may not be enough. For others, to be comfortable, you might need much less than that. But in any case, you'll probably need more than maximum amount of age pension.
And ASFA do have a breakdown of what a comfortable and modest lifestyle is. You probably do need some glasses to read that, Boris. And you have got them on, but
I do have glasses, but it's still too little.
Yeah, so I suggest if people want to have a look at that, if they want to go to the ASFA website, which is superannuation.asn.au, and if you just search their retirement standard there, it has a full breakup of what is what makes a comfortable lifestyle as opposed to modest lifestyle. And just one thing there is for modest lifestyle is able to afford cask wine, where a comfortable lifestyle is a bottled wine and so on. And the age pension, ASFA have brew your own beer or no alcohol at all. So, but again, you can look there for your own in your own time. Now, Boris, when you speak to our members, you really take a holistic approach to their financial situation and look at all aspects of their financial wealth. Did you want to touch on that?
Yeah, that's right, Justin. So, as I said, the retirement planning is about trying to fund that gap between the maximum amount of age pension. And for some people, they may not be eligible for any age pension for a period of time and the amount of money they need to be comfortable. And typically, we talk about a number of different sources of funding in the retirement. So some people may have money in cash, term deposits. Others may have some shares, investment properties. Typically, we see that the second largest asset for an individual is their super balance. Second largest only after family home. And now family home can also be used to fund the retirement through downsizing contributions that we'll touch upon later on in this presentation.
Thanks, Boris. And really, there are some tax benefits of saving with superannuation. For example, superannuation funds are only taxed up to 15%, depending on how much the super fund makes, and that's usually the net of our return. So usually any return that we declare is after that up to 15% tax has been taken out. Did you just also want to touch on the other?
Yeah, as you said, so super earnings are taxed at maximum 15%. Transition to retirement earnings are also taxed at maximum of 15%. And once you're fully retired and you have money in the allocated pension accounts, there is absolutely no tax on earnings whatsoever.
Which is a great benefit for people when they're in the allocated pension to get their have their investment savings or retirement savings all invested on a tax-free environment, which is great compared to if they were to have the money invested themselves in the share market or in term deposits and so on. That'll all be taxed at their marginal rate. So funding your retirement using superannuation really depends on the age. So if you're aged between 58 and 59, you can still get access to your superannuation, but you do need to be fully retired and complete a stacked deck saying that you're fully retired. People aged 60 to 64, you can get access to your superannuation once you cease an employment arrangement. And then people aged 65 and over, you can get access to your superannuation on your 65th birthday. Just one caveat though for people aged between 60 and 64. You can't, if you work for one of the schools within a Catholic education department, so for example, I'm here in the Sydney diocese, you can't go from one school in Sydney to another school in the Sydney diocese. That's the same employer. But if you went from a school in Sydney to a school in Wollongong, for example, or Parramatta or Broken Bay, that's considered a new employer, and that's the reason to get access to your superannuation between 60 and 64. So just one thing to bear in mind there. We do get people coming to us usually at the end of the school year or the start of the new year saying they just left one school and started the other. If it's in the same, if it's a systemic school in the same diocese, it's still considered the same employer. So just bear that in mind. Now, the government really encourage you to be self-funded retirees and salary sacrifice, and they do that by lowering the marginal tax rate or lowering the tax that you pay on the amount that you salary sacrifice. So, for example, if any amounts that you salary sacrifice are only taxed at 15%. So, if you're on a taxable income of up to 18,200, well, there's no tax at all. So you wouldn't want to salary sacrifice. There are other ways to put money in, and you may want to do that on a post-tax basis for that. But for anybody who earning more than 18,200 and paying tax, salary sacrifice is a good way. So 18,200 to 45,000, 19% tax. But with the tax saving, it's really only 4% tax you're paying. 4% tax you're saving. Most of us are on a tax between 45 and 120 or 120 and 180,000. So the tax saving there could be 17.5% up to 22%, depending on your marginal rate. And if you're a high income earner, it could be up to 30%. You could have your tax rate payable. For us, the superannuation guarantee rate has just changed, which is great for all of us. Did you just want to touch on that?
Yeah, it's a great news, obviously. So as we live in longer and longer, and the government is trying to entice us to save for our own retirement, they are also doing an increase in employer contributions for the coming years. So it's legislated that the super contributions will increase from originally it was 9%, then 9.5%. Currently it's 10.5% for this year, as opposed to 10% that we had last financial year. And that will increase by 0.5% in subsequent financial years until it reaches 12% employer contribution. So clearly, that is a good sign for our super balances in the future.
It's certainly great for people starting out retirement, isn't it, Boris, having 10.5 or 12% for the whole working career. You and I, who started back in the early 90s, and people even when super came around in award super at 3% in 88, and then at 5% in 1992, it's taken a long time for us to get to where we are now. So we do need to think about boosting our own superannuation by doing that salary sacrifice, because we've had different levels of superannuation going in over our working career, where the people starting now, we're going to have that high amount their whole working career. Boris, we've got an example here of somebody salary sacrificing, I think it's 5%. Did you just want to go through that?
Yeah, thanks, Justin. So yes, we have the example here for somebody who is on $100,000 a year and salary sacrificing 5% of their pre-tax income. So on the left side, in the left column, you can see that there is no salary sacrifice contributions. So on $100,000, taxable income per fortnight is about $3,846. Out of that, it's almost $1,000 worth of tax, and you end up taking home $2,884 each fortnight. If you can afford to salary sacrifice 5%, that's $192 each fortnight. That reduces your taxable income down to $3,653. You would get a little bit less in your pay packet each fortnight, about $127 less. So as you can see there is a difference between of what you get paid in your bank account and what your salary sacrificing. You put in $192 into super, but the only difference you see in your pay pocket is $127. And that over 1 year, that's about $1,700. If you start that and do it for 10 years, it's more than $17,000 in pure contributions. If we add on that benefits of compounding effect, clearly that's a very good strategy to put more money into your superannuation account.
It certainly is beneficial, isn't it? And there are limits, though, on how much you can put in there, Boris, unfortunately. So there are what's called the concessional contribution limit. So, and the concessional contribution limit is $27,500 per financial year. That has been the case now for the last 12 months. It did increase from the previous amount. And those concessional contributions are your employer contributions, and your SG guarantee, any salary sacrifice that you put in, as well as any personal deductible contributions. And they're all charged at 15% tax, and the accumulated amount of that can't exceed $27,500. Now, Boris, there is also what is called non-concessional contribution limits. And the rules around this have just changed this week from the 1st of July. Did you want to go through the non-concessional rules and limits, please?
Yes, so as you said, pre-tax contributions or concessional contributions have cap of $27,500. Some people would have more money, whether they have money in their bank accounts or they have sold investment properties, etc. So if you have additional funds that you cannot contribute through pre-tax contributions, you can take advantage of these non-concessional contributions, which are after-tax contributions. Up until 30th of June this year, it was only people till age 67 that they could contribute into super without work. But nowadays, from July 1, even if you are less than 75 years of age, you can still contribute money into super, and you can do $110,000 each year. Or if you had more than that, you could put 3 years all at once and then nothing for the next 3 years. You cannot exceed that $330,000 in a 3-year period. If you're 75 and over, unfortunately, you cannot make these non-concessional contributions.
Yeah, so it's been a great change that people over 67 not working. I know for I've got 2 members this week who are coming to see me to make deposits who they're over 67 and have had that additional money in their bank accounts and now want to put into superannuation. So it's a great incentive there. We've got a couple of questions coming through, and we'll get to those towards the end at this stage. Boris, so other ways to contribute. I know you spoke earlier about the or touched on the downsizer contribution. Did you want to talk about that, please, as well as spouse contributions?
So again, rules have changed as of July 1 this year. Downsizer contribution is basically the term itself can be somewhat misleading. You don't have to downsize to contribute money into super, but as long as you have money as a result of sale of your property, then you can contribute up to $300,000 into your super account if you're over age of 60 and if you have had your residential property for more than 10 years. So if you had your house for 11, 12, 15, 20 years and you sell it, you have money left over, you can contribute up to $300,000 regardless of what age you are. So this contribution can be made even if you're 80, 90, or 100 years old. You can contribute these contributions into super as long as you satisfy those conditions I mentioned earlier. On the top of that, we often see that there are different, that the spouses make different amount of money. So we can also contribute into our spouses' accounts. Contributions there also attract the tax deduction for a contributing spouse. So in theory, for someone who can contribute up to $3,000 into their spouse super account, they can get the tax deduction of about $540, which obviously is a nice way to not only increase one's super balance, but also get a tax deduction.
Great. I guess it's not really contributing, but just adding to your superannuation. Many people have multiple superannuation funds. So I think there's over 30 million superannuation accounts out there. And less than 20 million Australians eligible to have super. So by all accounts, most people do have more than one account. So it is a good idea to consider consolidating your superannuation together. It has been made a lot easier these days. You can do it using the MyGov app. So many of us have the smart apps or the MyGov smart app on their phones. If you log on there, look at your superannuation, or sorry, the ATO section of the MyGov, then look at superannuation. It will list any superannuation funds that you have there. And then you can choose Australian Catholic Super as your primary super fund, and then tick the box to roll those other funds into Australian Catholic Super. One thing though, just to be careful though, some superannuation funds like us have insurance attached to your account. So if you've got insurance attached to those funds outside of Australian Catholic Super and you want to keep that insurance cover, call our call centre and we'll be able to assist you by not only rolling over your super, but rolling over your insurance first and making sure your insurance cover continues with Australian Catholic Super that you had elsewhere. And then once that's all been set up, then we roll the money across so you don't lose out. If for some reason you had some underlying medical condition, you weren't or couldn't be underwritten for insurance, well then you would keep the existing policy you already had and not roll the money across. We have got a number of questions coming in, but one of them I see is about the downsizer, Boris, so we will take that one now. Boris, what would be the benefit of contributing to super, e.g. downsizer contribution, after 60 years rather than investing on your own somehow?
Yeah, so you can invest your money in any form that you see fit. You can invest it in shares, property, etc. Difference being to investing in super is that any kind of earnings you get from investing in your personal name will be taxed at your marginal tax rate, and money that's invested in super, or if you retired in allocated pension, will be taxed at 0% rate. So if you think about in terms of how much money you want for retirement, let's say if you need $60,000 to live on each year, to get $60,000 per year from investments outside of super in your personal name, you have to really make about $80,000 before tax pay about $20,000 worth of tax to get to that 60. If that money is invested in allocated pension, you only need to make $60,000 because you're not paying any tax to get to that amount. So benefit of investing in super is, first of all, you pay a lower amount of tax, and second of all, you have access to investments that you can't invest in your personal name.
Great. And there's been also a lot of questions we always get when you can get access to your superannuation savings, and to be eligible, you need to reach your preservation age and meet a condition of release, which we did touch on some of that a bit earlier on. But did you just want to touch on the ages, Boris?
Yeah, so as you previously said, you can access your money as soon as you reach your preservation age and you retire or cease the employment arrangement. So for people that are less than 60 years of age, you have to be genuinely retired. I mean, the tax office think about genuinely retired people. They think about someone who has retired from the workforce and have no intention of working more than 10 hours in a week. If you access your super at 58 or 59, so less than 60 years of age, there could be some tax implications of accessing super. If you're over age of 60 and less than 65, you had to cease your employment arrangement. So as you said, Justin, you need to stop working in one diocese and move into another diocese or state school, or completely change your profession. But if you're over age of 65, you don't have to be retired. You can access your super even if you're working full-time. So if, for example, you still have a mortgage at 65 and you continue to work, there's nothing stopping you from accessing your super to pay off some of that mortgage, if not all of it, and still continue working full-time for as long as you want to.
Thanks, Boris. And the ways to access your superannuation are through a lump sum or an income stream. So if you take a lump sum, well, then you've obviously got to go and invest it yourself, and you could be subject to what Boris said earlier on, tax at your marginal rate and so on. Or you can take it through an income stream, which is what we're going to turn our focus to now, about the allocated pension and transition to retirement allocated pension. Boris, the most common way of a retirement income stream is through an allocated pension, and you've really got to have all your money in a superannuation account first, because once you start a pension account, you can't add to it. So you would get all your clients and all our members would have all their contributions and account up to date in their super. So all their personal contributions, both on a pre and post-tax basis, all their employer contributions, lump sum payments, any government co-contributions that they may have received along the way. You would have consolidated your superannuation accounts and rolled over. You may have taken advantage of that downsized contribution that Boris has spoken about just previously. Once it's all in super, you start that pension account. Then the only money going into it would be the investment earnings that it makes along the way. And then the money coming out would be the regular pension payments and the lump sum. So with the allocated pensions, Boris, there is two types: a transition to retirement allocated pension. Would you go through the rules of that, please?
Yeah, so transition to retirement pension does not give you the full access to your super money. So this has been devised to allow you to access portion of your money whilst you're still working. So as we said before, earnings in your super accounts are taxed at 15%. Earnings in transition to retirement are still taxed at 15%. It's taxed at the same rate as a super. But transition to retirement allows you to access anywhere between 4 and 10% of the balance. Now, for last financial year and this financial year, that minimum is reduced by 50%, so anywhere between 2 and 10%. But the money you take out, if you're over age of 60, is still tax-free, because you would be over the age of 60 when you don't pay any tax on the payments coming from super. Difference to that is that earnings that your transition to retirement pension makes are still taxed at 15%. If you're less than 60 years of age, then there is a rebate of 15%. So it still can be tax efficient if you need access to extra money, but it's not as efficient as if you're over 60 years of age. Now, question becomes then, why would you need one of these accounts? And potentially some people would like to reduce their hours. Potentially you might want to go from full-time hours down to part-time hours, but you need extra money coming from somewhere to enable you to do that. Transition to retirement could be a good, neat answer for that. Or if you have mortgage and you need more money that you want to accelerate payments of your mortgage, you can have the transition to retirement to generate that additional income to help you clear the mortgage faster.
Right, and then there's also then the allocated pension. And there's only really two differences, isn't there? Did you want to just touch on?
Yeah, so the allocated pension is ultimate in flexibility when it comes to funding your retirement. There is no tax on investment earnings, so whatever that account make is entirely tax-free. As I mentioned in one of the previous examples, if you need $60,000 a year and your account makes $60,000 a year, there is no tax on that. You can take all of it tax-free. So it pays no tax on earnings. You don't have to pay any tax if you're over age of 60 when you take money out. And additionally, you have the access to lump sum benefits. So if you had an allocated pension that, for example, pays you $1,000 a week, and that's enough for your ongoing expenses and lifestyle, but you need an extra $20,000, $30,000 to buy a car or go on a holiday, you can access that lump sum from your allocated pension account anytime you want. There is also no tax on that lump sum benefit that you take. So to think about allocated pension is almost to think about your next employer and your next bank account. Your next employer because it pays you regular income. The only difference being is it's tax-free income. And your next bank account because you can access it at any time and use that money for whatever reason you want.
Great, thanks, Boris. And really complement the allocated pensions once you reach age pension age with Centrelink. And it all depends on, sorry, my slides aren't changing here, Boris. So yeah, sorry. The through age pension, depending on your eligibility, and that'll be the next slide, but really the age pension really looks at a number of different things. First of all, your age, obviously, and we'll talk about that in a moment. You need to be an Australian resident. It also looks at assets test and the limits for that, and Boris will go through those along with the income limits and also the pension rates that you will receive if you qualify for the age pension. So first of all, we look at the age criteria. So Boris, the age for the allocated pension?
Yes, so the age for allocated for Centrelink for age pension is moving from 65 to 67 years of age. So currently, if your birthday is anywhere between July 1, 55 and December 31, 56, you need to be at least 66 and a half years of age to receive age pension. And after everybody who's born after January 1, 57 would need to be 67 years of age. That is going to occur from July 1, 2023. So from that day onwards, basically everybody would need to be 67 years of age in order to access or to be eligible for some age pension.
And I guess the one thing that is really important, a lot of people get the age pension age as different to the superannuation access. So just always think the age pension age is 67 or going to 67, and the superannuation, to get access to your superannuation, is up to 65. So you can get your access to your super at 65, but you may need to be self-funded until you qualify for the age test there. But also, as you get older and you do spend some money, you may qualify for the age pension depending on what the assets test limits are, as well as your income. Boris, and we're going to go onto those now. Can you talk about the asset test limits for both the single homeowner and non-homeowner, please?
Thanks, Justin. So Centrelink looks at two tests to determine your age pension eligibility. The first test is called asset test, and they distinguish between single person, couples, and then they distinguish between homeowners and non-homeowners. So for single people, you can have up to $270,000, 500, and still receive full age pension. If your assets are between $270,000 and $599,750, then you can receive part age pension. And if you have more than that, then you're not eligible for any age pension based on asset test. For non-homeowners, because the expenses are different, obviously, they have to pay rent, they're allowed to have more in assets, so they can have up to $487,000 worth of financial assets and still get the full age pension. And if they have more than $816,250, then they do not receive any pension whatsoever. Now, when I say financial assets, Centrelink does not normally include your residential property as your financial assets. So whether you live in a property worth $5 million or $500,000, Centrelink currently does not take that into account.
And Boris, it's also different limits, obviously, then for a couple as well.
For couples, obviously, couples would require more, and their joint assets are taken into account. So couples can have up to $405,000 and still receive full age pension. So anything except your residential property, your super accounts, your bank accounts, your shares, investment property, etc. But if you have more than $901,500, then you don't receive any age pension whatsoever. Again, couple homeowners have larger assets, so you can have up to $621,500 in your assets and still get the full age pension. And if you have more than 1.18 million, then you don't receive any age pension whatsoever.
Thanks, Ross. And if you pass the assets test, well, then the next test that you have to pass is the income test. And again, there's limits for a single and a couple.
Correct. So, as I said, two tests. Whichever test yields the lower return is the test that Centrelink uses to determine one's eligibility. So, as a single person, you can earn up to about $4,680 in a year and still get full age pension. But if you earn more than $56,000 a year, then you don't receive any age pension. So you can still potentially work part-time or casually and still get the full age pension or at least part age pension. For couples, again, limits are a bit higher. They can earn up to $8,320 in a year and still get full age pension. If they earn more than $85,748 in a year, then they are not eligible to receive any age pension at all.
Thanks, Bryce. And you'll see on the bottom of the screen, that's the 20th of March. These amounts get updated twice a year, on the 20th of March and the 20th of September each year. So if you are borderline, you could qualify soon after, depending when the limits do change, twice a year for this particular test. Now, if you do pass the incomes test and the assets test, and you do qualify for a maximum pension, Boris, can you go through what they are, please?
Yes, so as we mentioned at the start, a single person can get maximum about $25,677 in a year. And for couples, that's $38,708 joint per year to be eligible for. Couples that are separated due to ill health, so where one member of the couple is, for example, in aged care accommodation, they can each get $25,677 in a year.
Great, Boris. And also, if you don't qualify for a government pension through Centrelink, you may also qualify for what's called the Commonwealth Seniors Healthcare Card. And that is for people who fail the assets test and income test. This Commonwealth Seniors Healthcare is only based on the income test. And so, for example, if you've reached age pension age, you meet the income test, again, you meet those same residency rules. The single person, the income test is $57,700, where the couple is just over $92,000. Now, if you qualify for that seniors healthcare card, you qualify for cheaper medicine. So instead of paying up to $40 or $45, I think they are scripts these days, you may be paying around the $5 or $6 mark per script. And as you're getting older, you may be needing more and more prescriptions. That could be quite a saving for you to qualify for that. Also, a lot of GPs and specialists will just charge you the Medicare rate if you're on a seniors healthcare card, which again is quite beneficial. And those limits though are only updated once a year in September each year. So if you are borderline again, keep an eye out in September each year for the new limits. And it also may give you lower rates. So some electricity and council rates and so on, if you've got one of those cards, and some states also give you discounted public transport and so on. So they're all things to consider. Just a reminder, if you've got any questions, please don't hesitate to put them in the chat box. And as I say that, one's just come through. We've got about 5 or 6 questions to answer here at the end, Boris, but just remind members to put those in because we are coming towards an end of our formal part of our presentation, and then we'll get to the questions that our members have asked us. So there are a few things changing or have changed now on 1 July, Boris, and so people aged 67 to 74 will no longer have to meet a work test to make that voluntary non-concessional contribution, which we have spoken about a bit earlier. And a bring forward rule of putting 3 years worth at once will also be abolished and can go now up until under age 75. The minimum age for the downsizer contribution will reduce from 65 to 60, which Boris has touched on. And the first home buyers can now save up to $50,000 and any deemed earnings to use for a deposit through the first home buyer saver scheme. There are a few others. Boris, can you touch on the next few changes that have just occurred?
Thanks, Justin. So as mentioned previously, there is a reduction in the minimum drawdown requirements for account-based pension and transition to retirements for this financial year. So it is 50%, half of what you normally require to take. So to take a step back, if you're less than 65 years of age, the minimum amount normally that you have to take from your allocated pension is 4%. From 65 to 75 years of age, it's 5%. 75 to 80, it's 6%, and it keeps increasing until it gets to 14% for people above 95 years of age. So for this financial year, due to effects of pandemic and various wars that we have in, government has decided to extend this relief. So people who can afford to, they don't have to take as much as they used to, and that would in turn hopefully preserve their balances, enable them to last longer. Secondly, the $450 super guarantee threshold is removed. So it used to be that you had to make at least $450 in a month before your employer was obliged to contribute into super. Now, for most teachers that we deal with, that's not a problem, because even if you do one casual day, you earn more than that in a month. But for lower paid employees that were casual employees or part-time employees, if they earned less than $450 in a month, they didn't get any super contributions. So now they will get some super contributions, which is obviously good news. And as we mentioned at the start, contribution rates for employer contributions, for super guaranteed contributions, are now increased to 10.5% for all employees.
Great, thanks, Boris. And one thing that's quite important when you do see your members and our financial plans see our members is estate planning, and really making sure that their wealth is looked after when they pass on. Did you want to touch on that?
Yes, so when we talk about estate planning, we're thinking about assets that are subject to will. So they're called estate assets and non-estate assets. So estate assets are things like houses, bank accounts, shares, etc. And non-estate assets are your super accounts, your allocated pension accounts. So it's important to have a will up to date to determine who is going to get what if something happens to you. Now, this is not something that financial planners can necessarily help you, but the financial planners can at least provide you some guidance in what to discuss with your solicitor. Second important document that you should discuss with your solicitor is called the power of attorney. Will comes into effect only when a person passes away, but if somebody has been incapacitated due to ill health or whatever other reason, then their family may need a power of attorney to help them deal with the financial assets that belong to that person. This is typically important when somebody needs to go to an aged care accommodation where that person may not be able to make financial decisions and somebody else would need to have a power of attorney to act on their behalf. When it comes to your super accounts and your allocated pension accounts, it's important to have up-to-date binding nominations or a non-binding nomination. And the difference between those two is that with the binding nominations, there is no discretion by the super trustees, so they have to act in as long as your binding nomination is valid. Your super account will have to pay the benefits to that person. And with the non-binding nominations, they could be still subject to challenges by various people. So this is something that we can help you with. This is something that Justin can help you with. If you need nomination for your super, then we strongly suggest that you reach out to us so we can help you out.
Thanks, Boris. And how else can you assist our members in their planning for retirement?
As you mentioned before, we look at the holistic situation. So we look at the various ways that can save you money on your retirement. We could look at how to maximize your Centrelink. We can do some projections to tell you how long your money will last in your retirement. So one of the typical questions that I would get when I have an appointment meeting with a client is, can I afford to retire? It obviously depends how long you want your money to last in your retirement. So that's something we can look at. We can look at the short, medium, or long-term goals. We can look at the estate planning, as we mentioned. And for people that are too young or have too much money in super, we can help them with investing money outside of super. And we can also help people who don't have our super accounts. We can help with your partners or family members. We can look at the aged care advice, help you minimize the aged care fees, maximize the Centrelink entitlements, and maximize the estate benefits to the families. So there are a number of ways we can help out our members.
Thanks, Boris. So when you are members with Australian Catholic Super, there are a number of ways which we can assist you and give you that advice and information. The first is what we call general information. That's where I can assist you, our call centre staff can assist, our regional managers and business development staff. We can give you general information about your account. We can help you assist forms and look at your statements and explain how different things work and so on. Once you say to me, Justin, should I put all my money in shares, or I'm a bit worried about the market, should I put it in cash? That's asking for advice. We will then ask you to go and have a chat to our limited advice team or our comprehensive advice. Now, our limited advice team works with Boris as part of our whole advice sector, and they look at 4 specific areas of advice, such as contributions, your investment options, insurance, and transition to retirement. Boris, did you want to touch on those, please?
Yes, so our limited advisors are free over the phone service. They can also have the Zoom meetings if you prefer. And if you have an account with us, they can help you with simple advice about contributions to super, about choosing the right investment options, having the right insurance in your accounts, and possibly a transition to retirement accounts. For anything that's a little bit more complicated than limited advice, we would suggest that you have a comprehensive advice. And if we can go just to the next slide there, comprehensive advisors can help you with everything that the limited advisors can help. They can look into your situation a little bit more and assist with the contribution limits, help you save money for your retirement, maximize your Centrelink entitlements, give you the ideas of how long that money will last, help you with achieving the short, medium, long-term goals, estate planning, and look at any other investments you may have outside of super.
Thanks, Boris. It's very easy to reach out to get this advice on our 1300 658 776 number, or alternatively, as I mentioned at the start, I'll be sending out a survey later on this afternoon, which will have questions about what you thought of today's webinar, but there'll also be a follow-up box there where you can tick whether you would like to be followed up for comprehensive advice by Boris and his team, or limited advice, or there's some general information from myself or the other RMs in your local area. Excuse me. Now, just as we come to an end of our presentation today, I'd just like to remind you of our member portal at catholicsuper.com.au. You can log on there to get your most up-to-date balance. You can also make contributions through there, change investment options, work out how much insurance you have, as well as amend any insurance that you may have. You can also update any any non-binding beneficiaries. There's a lot of things there that you can look on the member portal. So I encourage you, if you haven't looked at our member portal, to log on and have a look there. So what can you do right now? I've just said, look at the member portal, speak to your local regional manager and business development. They're able to assist you. Also, the financial planning team are also able to assist. It's very easy to get in contact with us through the 1300 number, so 1300 658 776. Our call centre is available from 8:30 in the morning to 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Monday to Friday, and also 9 to 5 on a Saturday. So please feel free to reach out. Also, our website has got a lot of information that we've covered today at catholicsuper.com.au, or you can email us directly at fundoffice@catholicsuper.com.au. Now, as I've mentioned throughout, you have the opportunity to ask questions. We have got a number of questions that have come through. Some are personal, so I'll try and amend those if I can when I ask them to Boris, or alternatively, your local RM will reach out and get back to you. But the first question goes back to when we were talking about salary sacrifice, Boris, and I guess with the current markets, investment markets the way they are, this member has said, I've been salary sacrificing and all I'm seeing is my balance going down at the moment. With the inflation, living expenses have gone up. So I've had to reduce my salary sacrifice to keep on paying bills. I don't want to reduce it anymore. But I'm getting nervous about superannuation performance. Did you want to just touch on the investment markets? And also, I guess now is the opportunity to get in at lower unit prices, Boris.
Yeah, thanks, Justin. So it is, it's not pleasant seeing the balances go down. It's not pleasant being bombarded from the media about markets dropping down. All we hear is how markets drop down X amount of billions in a day. It's very unpleasant, but we have seen it before. It's unfortunately normal things that happen on the investment markets. If you look at the long-term investment performances, let's say for Australian Catholic Super, since inception, our balance fund has made on average 9% per year. If you look at any kind of investments, you could see the ups and downs. Even when you look at the properties, you could see that the prices of the properties can go up and down. Now, when the properties go down, it's not necessarily as visible, but what's visible is that those properties don't sell as quickly as they used to. So you may drive to your suburb and you can see that there are properties that are on the market for a while. It's because obviously the seeking price is not reflecting what market is willing to offer. So yes, some people had to reduce what their salary sacrificing because the costs are getting higher. Salary sacrifice is only effective if you have money that you can afford to contribute to super. If you cannot afford to put money in the super, if you're not going to have enough money now to pay your bills and to have the lifestyle you want, then you may not be able to put money in the super. But money you do end up putting in the super actually works in the long term for you, almost better in the low return environment than if you contribute in money when the markets are good. And the reason for that is called dollar cost averaging. Dollar cost averaging basically means you contributing money in the super and you buy the units when they got a low unit price. So you buy more of these units when the market is low than when you would buy them when the markets are high. And what that means is when the market turns up, because they're all going to cycles. So when the market goes up, if you have more units at the higher unit price, you stand to benefit from that. So whilst in the short term, you may see some losses, those losses are currently on paper. In the long term, you should be able to see the benefit of your strategy.
Thanks, Boris. The next question we have, if someone uses their long service leave at half pay, once that runs out, if they continue to do a little bit of casual teaching, can they delay their pension starting date if they can afford to wait? I guess I was just going to say, I guess the easy answer to that one is yes, you can. But
absolutely. So if you can afford not to access your super, you don't have to access it anytime you want. What we just need to weigh up is it better to have money in tax-free environment and have some money being taken out, or is it better not to access that money? So answer for each individual will be different depending on their personal circumstances, but there is no law that forces you to start a pension.
Great, thanks, Boris. And the next question is, can my husband, who is retired, is now receiving a super pension, put more money into super?
It depends on the age and the contribution limits. So potentially yes, but it depends on your personal circumstances. We will need to look at that and then decide whether it's beneficial and whether it's possible to put more money into super.
So the new rules that come into effect in 1 July, if your husband is under 75, we'll open up the opportunity, but again, it all depends on what your total superannuation balance is. So that's where you'll be getting that advice, Boris. What would be the benefit of contributing to super, e.g. downsize the contribution after 60 years rather than investing it on your own somehow?
I think that's the question we've answered previously, but to summarize it, because tax-free environment of allocated pension enables you to even with the lower earnings, you can get more after tax.
Great. The next one is, does the asset test include a superannuation balance? The simple answer is yes, it does. And does the income test for the health card include superannuation pension payments?
No, the payments you take from your super are not assessed as income. What is assessed is Centrelink deems your super balance. So your actual pension payments are not assessed as the payment, but what they do is they calculate what they call deemed rate of return. And that's calculated first $53,600 for singles, deems to earn 0.25%, regardless of what the actual earning is. And anything above that is deemed to earn 2.25%. So if you had, for example, $100,000 in a term deposit, Centrelink would say first $53,600, we are assuming that only earns 0.25%, but everything above that is going to earn 2.25%. Whether you make that or not, that's irrespective, because those are the rates that they use.
Great, thanks, Boris. The next one is, if your allocated pension is invested in an investment split, for example, capital stable and growth, and you want to withdraw some money, which investment is better to withdraw from?
It depends. So as soon as we start saying what's better for me, it's personal advice. So I don't know what's better for you at this point in time without taking into account your circumstances. You can, in terms of what are you able to do, you can take money from one, the other, or you can split it evenly, or you can take it in proportion to the balances that you have. But what's better for you personally, I couldn't be able to tell you right now.
Thanks, Boris. The next one is, I'll answer this one, is why is Australian Catholic Super Retirement Fund merging, and will there be many changes with the merger? Australian Catholic Super is merging with UniSuper at the end of this year. A lot of communication will be coming out in the coming weeks about that and how that will affect your account. You will get new account numbers and so on. We don't know what those will be yet, but we'll know those in the coming months, but you'll be kept updated along the way. The simple reason we are merging is the government changed a lot of rules around superannuation, and what they wanted to do is to have large superannuation funds. And so they thought that superannuation funds under $20 billion are unsustainable, and really that number really is increased up to about $50 billion now. So we've sought a merger partner, and the merger partner we found was UniSuper, who just happens to be the super fund of the year last year. They're another education-based fund who have got a lot of experience with education, obviously. They also look after the Catholic universities. And they have got a very similar model to what we do. And the fees will be able to be remain low, and if not lower than what you're currently paying. And again, those details will come out in the coming weeks and months as we lead up to the merger. But that's essentially why we've decided to merge. It was something that the trustee have thought long and hard about, and came up with UniSuper as the best partner. The next question is, really, how do you start doing a TTR? They can't do it through the portal. Your local regional manager will reach out to you in the coming, in the next day or so, once I forward those questions out to them, to reach out and assist you with that one. I'm conscious of time now, as we're just here 11 o'clock, so I'll just go through these last few questions and try and keep the answers as short as we can, Boris. If after retiring, I return to work as a relief teacher, casual employment, does the employer pay super? The answer is yes. So whenever you earn an income, your employer will pay now 10.5% superannuation for that. So that will be going into your account. And that member just said they are 63. So definitely be paying superannuation for you. The next question is, what is the best way to go about retiring in a couple of years, still with a house debt? I'm thinking one of two ways: draw down the whole amount from super and pay off, or draw down the fortnightly payments. Is there another way? Boris, did you want to touch on that?
Yes, it depends. So you'd need to get and see someone, because what the best thing to do, it's very difficult to ascertain without having the full picture in front of us.
Thanks, Boris. The next one is, if you have more than 600,000 in super, you don't qualify for the age pension. Is that correct? Well, it comes back to those limits. Yeah. So again, we'll clarify that with the local RM. We'll give you a call. The next one, Boris, and will be our last one. If you are renting but own an investment property, are you considered a homeowner or not?
No, you're not, but your investment property will be taken as an asset, and I dare say its value may be higher than what the minimum threshold is.
Great, thanks, Boris. There's been a lot of questions we've just quickly raced through there, and there are some more that I have missed. So I do apologise that we have run out of time for those, but your local regional manager will reach out to you and answer those in the next 24 to 48 hours. So thank you for your time and joining Boris and I. And Boris, thank you.
Thank you, Justin, and thank you all for joining us.
Thank you, and safe travels, everybody. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.